Hello, I am Marina Barcelo, and I am the Student Inclusion Coordinator at PSU School of Social Work.
And I'm Kate Hall, and I am the MSW Student Inclusion Intern.
Today, we will be talking about PSU's fragrance-free value statement.
Before we start, we wanted to share this quote that contextualizes what we mean when we refer to accessibility throughout this presentation. This is a quote from Leah Lakshmi Pyapshna Samarasinha, who is a disability justice organizer, author, and performer in her piece, Making Spaces Accessible is an Act of Love for Our Communities. The word crip here is used as a reclaimed slur, short for cripple. When I think about access, I think about love. I think that Crip solidarity and solidarity between Crips and non-yet Crips is a powerful act of love, and I got your back. It's in big things, but it's also in the little things we do, moment by moment, to ensure that we all, in all our individual bodies, get to be present fiercely as we make change. Leah also wrote one of the resources we have in our Further Resources slide that speaks specifically to her challenges going fragrance-free as a woman of color. In this presentation, we are going to be talking about language, history, and clarification of the value statement, who is affected by exposure to chemicals, why go chemical and fragrance-free, barriers to going fragrance-free, a harm reduction approach, a note on accessibility, and further resources. Throughout the presentation, we will also share quotes from an anonymous School of Social Work student who is affected by chemicals and fragrances.
Okay, so we wanted to start by just sharing a little bit more about the actual value statement. So we're going to start by sharing the background. The ingredients in many fragrances and scents are known to irritate the respiratory tract, nervous system, and eyes, lower immunity to disease, and trigger allergies and other severe health reactions. In the case of asthma and epilepsy, reactions triggered by exposure to scented products can be life-threatening. So the value statement here from Portland State University says, Portland State University supports sustaining healthy indoor air quality. In the interest of promoting the health and safety of the university's students, faculty, staff, and visitors, the campus community is encouraged to maintain a fragrance-free environment. Please refrain from using scented personal care, laundry, and cleaning products. Thank you for your consideration of others in providing an environment in which every person on campus can feel safe and comfortable.
We wanted to discuss the history and challenges of the value statement. So to begin, there was a lack of overall clarity around which kinds of scents the statement referred to. So while it mentions personal care, laundry, and cleaning products, there was still some overall confusion around scents. There was also some confusion around whether this was a value statement or an enforceable policy with consequences if it was not followed. There was also a lack of buy-in, so it's important to note that this statement was rolled out by Human Resources. This was not something that originated within the School of Social Work. So some people were really excited about it, while others felt like this was coming from the top down. Some folks in the School of Social Work also felt and may continue to feel like their personal choices were or are being policed. So what about folks who are unable to find hair products without scent? What about folks who use scents for religious or spiritual purposes? The cultural connection to scents. Scent can be a deeply personal issue. So overall, there's confusion. Who is this for? Where did this come from? What is it actually referring to? Are there consequences for not following it? What even is chemical sensitivity? Is this a race or a class issue? What about intersectionality?
So we want to clarify the language of the value statement and clarify what fragrance-free really means. The fragrance-free value statement is really not as much about smells as it is about chemicals. Fragrance itself is a chemical. It's artificial and added to a lot of products, including perfume, scented personal care products, makeup, laundry detergents, essential oils, commercial air fresheners, candles, incense, cleaning supplies, etc. Chemicals also include smoke, car exhaust, pesticides, chlorine, and more. This means that the fragrance-free value statement does not apply to things like body odor or food smells. Who is affected by chemical exposure? Members of our School of Social Work community with allergies, chronic pain, asthma, MCS, environmental injuries, people undergoing chemo, and so many more. A study conducted in 2016 found that 34.7% of the US population reports health problems when exposed to fragrance. What is multiple chemical sensitivity? It is a disability that results from chemical overexposure, and that can be either chronic exposure or a single event. For example, people growing up around industrial pollution, chronic exposure to construction sites, pesticides, cleaning chemicals, formaldehyde, mold, lead, etc. As you can probably tell, the people most likely to develop MCS are the working poor, making chemical sensitivity a race and class issue. Additionally, there is so much stigma surrounding MCS. There's a lot of debate in the medical community about whether or not MCS is a quote-unquote real illness. A lot of doctors frame people with environmental injuries as just being too sensitive. And if you've ever experienced ableism, you know how much this perspective hurts. This leads people to not feel comfortable disclosing or advocating for their needs, contributes to a lot of social isolation. There is also a lot of really good writing about the relationship between environmental injury and illness and climate change, how climate change is contributing to the number of people developing environmental illnesses, and the potential of collaboration between disability justice and climate justice movements. We unfortunately don't have time to get into this today, but if you're interested in learning more, check out Sins and Ballads Disability Justice Primer.
We now want to share a little bit more about the symptoms of chemical exposure. So it's important to note that everyone responds to chemical exposure differently and at different levels of severity. And so this contributes to some of the stigma. It's not easily classified or categorized. So some of the symptoms might include shortness of breath, migraines, nausea, extreme fatigue, dizziness, seizures, muscle or joint pain, asthma attacks. And depending on how sensitive a person is, these symptoms can last for days, weeks, even months after exposure. We wanted to share a quote from a social work student. Exposure to fragrances often causes an instant migraine for me. If I'm exposed for more than a few minutes, the migraine will often last for several days following exposure. I get the kind of migraines where I have to be laying down in a dark room with no light or sound until the pain goes away. I am usually in too much pain to sit up or prepare my own food. So I either have to have someone come to my house to care for me, or I just don't eat. The migraines also affect my vision, so it can sometimes even be dangerous for me to try to drive myself home after an exposure. I wish I was being dramatic. I'm not. This is real, and it's more debilitating than I can ever describe. We wanted to thank this student for sharing their experience. Why go chemical and fragrance free? There are many reasons to go chemical and fragrance free, but we want to share that making the School of Social Work accessible to people with MCS, allergies, and chronic illness is of utmost importance. Chemical sensitivity is a disability issue, it is an access issue, it is a social justice issue. We acknowledge that the stigma and lack of research results in isolation for many and inability to access services. Also, we acknowledge that MCS isn't always taken seriously. It's just recently included under the ADA. Many policies and people do not recognize this as a real thing, and it's very important that we acknowledge this is very real, very important, and it's impacting people not only in our school, but in our greater community. If we believe in the importance of accessibility, we have to hold ourselves accountable to it.
It's important to acknowledge that there are some barriers to going chemical and fragrance-free. A big one is cost. Buying new products is expensive, and not everyone can afford to just get rid of all the products they have and buy new ones. Another is lack of availability. Certain necessary products don't have fragrance-free alternatives. A lot of products, especially ones for black hair, are harder to find without fragrance added. Finally, some chemical-generating behaviors, including smoking, are sometimes necessary for survival and stress management. We can't ask people to stop smoking. That is not trauma-informed.
We acknowledge that this list of barriers to going chemical and fragrance-free is not comprehensive, that there might be other barriers to going chemical and fragrance-free. We are very open to being in discussion with any of you who would like to further discuss these barriers. So Kate and I are proposing a harm reduction approach. We acknowledge that it is virtually impossible to make a space 100% fragrance-free. This is a public space. There are always variables that can't be controlled, such as guests who don't know about the value statement and are in our space. We also acknowledge that fragrance and chemicals can travel through the air and can also stick to your clothes. So if someone wearing perfume brushes up against you, the fragrance can stay with you. This is very, very difficult to control. However, we want to acknowledge that it doesn't mean that small changes won't make a difference, because they will. You can instead really focus on reducing your impact. So what steps can you take to make the School of Social Work more accessible to chemically sensitive folks? If you can't afford to buy new products, can you stop wearing perfume or using dryer sheets? If you smoke, can you wear a separate coat to smoke in that you can leave in your car? Can you get a small air purifier for your office? These might seem like small things, but we acknowledge that they can make a big difference.
Because the School of Social Work is in a public building, and because of the historical tensions around the value statement and the overall complexity of intersectionality, a harm reduction approach is the best we can do. This kind of approach isn't ideal because it means this space will still be inaccessible to many people with chemical sensitivity, and we want to acknowledge that. The table featured here is to help us understand which fragrance products are the most harmful and which are the least. It's also important to note that these are just products. This table doesn't account for other potential triggers like smoke. The most harmful products, and the ones we should avoid completely if we can, are cologne, perfume and body spray, dryer sheets, air fresheners, and scented candles. Moderately harmful products include scented laundry detergents, scented fabric softeners, and scented deodorant. And the least harmful products include scented shampoo, scented conditioner, scented body wash, scented lotion and body oils, scented hand soap, and scented hairspray and gel. The bottom line is, always read the ingredients label. Avoid products with fragrance, natural fragrance, perfume, parfum, and masking agent. For clarification, masking agent is an ingredient in some quote-unquote unscented products that can still cause issues for people. Another quote from the Chemically Sensitive School of Social Work student reads, "The thing that I find I have to emphasize most with folks when I talk about this is that every person with fragrance and chemical sensitivities reacts to different things. So just because I don't react to your perfume does not mean that it's okay to wear perfume. I guarantee that someone else is sensitive to it."
It's really important to check out the ingredient list. So here are 2 jars of cocoa butter. On the left, you will see the fragrance-free option. The ingredients read 100% pure raw cocoa butter. On the right, on the Nivea jar, you will see fragrance listed as an ingredient. Coconut oil, cocoa butter, shea butter, almond oil, and aloe vera are all great options without fragrance. And brands that you might want to consider checking out include Lubriderm, Jason's, and Kiss My Face.
Here are some other steps to take and questions you can ask yourself. Can you put an air purifier in your office or classroom? This isn't as helpful as completely refraining from fragrance products, but it can make a big difference. Can you mention the value statement in your syllabus and provide resources and info for students? A lot of us are still learning about this value statement, but hopefully after this presentation we'll know enough to start conversations about it or at least be able to refer resources. You can also make DIY fragrance-free products. Baking soda is a very versatile ingredient that can be used in a ton of different ways, in laundry, in shampoo, as deodorant, etc. You can also use a lot of common kitchen items in DIY fragrance-free products, such as olive oil, coconut oil, and vinegar. Another thing you can do is use chemical-free dry erase markers in class. A lot of people get sick from the chemicals in these markers, and alternatives exist. Use them. Another quote from a student reads, "In the past, I have had instructors who remind the class at the beginning of each term that PSU has a fragrance-free value statement and what that means. It has made a world of difference to me to know that I'm not on my own trying to advocate for myself. In my experience, my fellow students give a lot less pushback when it comes from an instructor." Finally, we'd like to share a quote from Mia Mingus, who is a disability and transformative justice organizer, in her piece, Access Intimacy, Interdependence, and Disability Justice. She urges us to think of accessibility not as an obligation, but as a tool for liberation. Liberatory access calls upon us to create different values for accessibility than we have historically had. It demands that the responsibility from access shifts from being an individual responsibility to a collective responsibility. I believe we can do access in liberatory ways that aren't just about inclusion, diversity, and equality, but are rather in service of justice, liberation, and interdependence. With this in mind, I want to ask us all to consider not just being fragrance-free while you're at the School of Social Work, but if possible, everywhere. Chemical sensitivity is a disability that affects so many people across the globe, not just members of the School of Social Work community, but our friends, our families, our clients, our neighbors, people we share space with on public transportation and elevators, on airplanes, people whose lives would be so much easier and safer if we cut down on the amount of fragrance we wear and the chemicals we use. Individually going fragrance-free in the School of Social Work isn't going to stop the increasing number of people becoming environmentally injured each year, but it allows more environmentally injured members of our community to access the space and all it has to offer.
We wanted to finish by providing further resources that may be helpful to you as you consider going chemical and fragrance-free. Fragrance-Free Femme of Color Genius by Leah Lakshmi Piepshna Samarasinha. Accessibility, A Beginner's Guide to Fragrance and Chemical Sensitivities, Hedonish. East Bay Meditation Center Fragrance-Free Guide, which includes many fragrance-free product recommendations, especially for people of color-specific products. Black Women for Wellness Sisters in Control Healthy Hair Initiative. MCS Accessibility Basics, Billy Ring. These are just a few resources. There are many more out there. We look forward to having more conversations with all of you about the fragrance-free value statement. If anyone has further questions, ideas, feedback, concerns, we are very open to meeting with you and to addressing your questions.
Thanks so much for watching this video and listening to this presentation.
Thank you.